Welcome to Something More with Chris Boyd. Chris Boyd is a certified financial planner practitioner and senior vice president financial advisor at Wealth Enhancement Group, one of the nation's largest registered investment advisors. We call it Something More because we'd like to talk not only about those important dollar and cents issues, but also the quality of life issues that make the money matters matter. Here he is, your fulfillment facilitator, your partner in prosperity, advising clients on Cape Cod and across the country. Here's your host, J. Christopher Boyd.
Thank you for being with us for another episode of Something More with Chris Boyd. I'm here with Jeff Perry. We are both of the AMR team at Wealth Enhancement Group, and it is well into the season where we start to do our holiday shopping, and there's that, and we get distracted. There's so much going on. It's so busy.
Sure is.
It's an easy time to get taken on a ride when it comes to the scams and fraudsters that are out there. They seem to be getting better and better each year, Jeff, when it comes to some of these scams.
No doubt. They're getting better and better, and their tools are getting better and better. One of the recent articles that I saw was talking about AI. I know it seems to be everything, right? In a positive side, and medical advances, AI, and writing, all these tools that are available now with the developing technology of AI. But if you think about it, some of the obvious signs of a scam, whether it's a phone call or an email, have been in the past. Maybe individuals who don't speak English as a native language.
It's easier to detect like idioms or something,
Right.
that just the grammar was poor, or you'd be like,
Well, you're just
really a Nigerian prince,
Yeah, right. But with AI, not only will their writing be better for emails or websites, but also, and this one I hadn't even contemplated this one. We heard about fake messages during the political campaign of someone's. I'm going to use the word spoofing. I don't know if I'm using it correctly, but pretending to be someone else.
Yes.
So now they'll be able to create, even if they don't speak, even if the scammer is overseas, they'll be able to create a perfectly sounding American business woman.
Yeah. Audio and video. They can even make a person appear to be like a fake person.
Absolutely.
Video content. Or replicate someone who, like, how that grandchild scam.
That's right.
People often hear. They could, if there's content of that individual online, they could potentially replicate.
That's right.
So that it appears to be what they're saying.
So if you post a photo or a video even better, right? Or worse, of you and your grandchild doing something, or the scammer goes from your account to the grandchild's TikTok account,
right?
And there's endless content there,
voices and
a lot of
images. Yeah,
you could get a call that sounds a lot like your grandchild,
and
saying,
"I'm in Europe and I need to get bailed out," or whatever.
That's right. Or when I worked for the sheriff's office, we had it wasn't a voice, meaning a replica voice, but we had scams that were happening on the Cape where someone would pose as a law enforcement officer, call grandma and say, "All right, we have your grandchild Joey in here," and they'd say a few things about Joey based upon Joey's social media. He got picked up for shoplifting. We had to take him in. The merchant was really aggressive.
Joey would never shoplift.
Well, he asked us to call you because he is too nervous about calling his parents. And I think I'm going to be able actually to get the merchant to drop the charges. But we just need $200 to release Joey. And if you'd like to do it right away so he doesn't have to stay here, if you just run down to the CVS or
you can get a gift card,
get a green card and get a gift card. And, so I think the theme of everything we want to talk about in this episode, Chris, is go slower, pause. When something happens that you're reacting to quickly, especially if it's not in person, even if it is in person, but just slow down, right? Slow down and say, "Can I get back to you?" Like for the one I was explaining that happened on the Cape when I was working at the sheriff's office. If the people just said, "Okay, I have somebody here right now. Can you just give me your phone number to call back, and I'll get right on this. You don't have to challenge the person calling
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
Just
Just be as if you're going to go along with it. Maybe say,
that's
okay,
right.
let me get back to you. I need to raise some funds or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Then you don't call that number though,
No,
huh?
you don't call the number that they give you. You go
Yeah.
to the original source. So that's how
So
we found out the
the
sheriff's office,
sheriff's
because
department,
people
whatever.
would call the sheriff's office and say, "Did someone just call here? Do you have Joey
Yeah.
in custody?" And we were able to.
They like don't know who Joey is. Yeah. Yeah. Something's going on. Yeah.
That's just to the AI point. That's just being magnified with
Yeah.
the advances
Exactly.
in artificial
It's
intelligence.
going to make it harder to really discern. Even when before AI, when you get emails, nowadays you get an email, it looks like it's from an official source with a statement or something. I'll
Hmm.
call it FedEx or the postal service or something, right? There'll be a communication, a bill like a credit card or something, and it's like, oh, you have this fraudulent
Sure.
charge, and if you just click through here, we can rectify it or whatever.
Yeah.
So like sometimes it's stuff you're like, you just can fall like, oh, is this really? Is this fake? And sometimes it appears to be good enough that you could think, oh, maybe it is. Or if you're not paying close attention, you wouldn't catch that it's a bogus one. Oh, that the email address is not an email address that would be that institution.
Well,
Or
they can make it look pretty close, or they can hide it. They can encrypt the email address, and so it still says U.S. Post Office until
or
you click
whatever.
the actual
Yeah.
email address.
Yeah.
And before you
Yeah.
know it, you're entering your name, date of birth, social security number, address, to file
Yeah.
this claim on this fraudulent thing, and you know, and
Right.
that's if you just give them your identities and you don't start giving them your bank account number
Money.
so they can refund the number. We had, and I know a lot of people who are listening right now say that would never happen to me. And
Yeah.
I feel the same way. I
Yep.
feel that I'm one of those people who would say,
I wouldn't fall for
no,
them.
I wouldn't fall for that. But
But
we re
but
we
they would catch you at a weak moment, a distracted moment, and just there, it happens to everybody. People who you would say, how did they fall for that? Right? Not, I mean, if someone is, they oftentimes elderly are the
correct.
target of some of
Right.
these things. Partly because sometimes they're less technology savvy, right? Technologically savvy. Sometimes it's because they may be at an age where they are, not as cognitively astute. And so uh, they may be in the habit of being generous anyway at this stage of life or whatever it is, right? So there's all these prompts that can make them more susceptible to these kinds of issues, but it doesn't have to be because anyone is technologically, inept or a variety of reasons. I think anybody can fall susceptible to these things now because they've gotten so good at being deceptive.
Right. They learn every day. The fraudsters learn every day what the objections are and what point they're being questioned, and they're just modifying their tactics to deal with those
Yeah.
objections. And so I wanted to bring some of these common or new scams up. It is, by the way, International Fraud Awareness Week.
Ah,
And
good, good
your
point.
wife, Kristen, actually let me know because we had a client. We have a client who, not related to the accounts that she has with us,
Hmm.
but I was talking to her about another matter, and she let me know that she had fallen prey to one of these scams. It all started on Facebook, and say Facebook, people know there's scams there, but it,
Hmm.
she got a message in her message, the private
Yeah,
messages that
messenger. Yeah.
looked to her perfectly that this was a fraud. This was Facebook Fraud Bureau, whatever they called themselves,
Okay.
and they
Something
had
from Facebook trying to rectify an
something
issue.
looking from Facebook in Facebook private message that said, your account has been hacked. We need to clean this up. Don't worry about this. And
Will help you resolve it.
the key in the door was, and this person is a very intelligent person. I would not think she would have done this, and she today would say it's my fault, but she allowed them to download. She downloaded a file to allow them access to her computer.
Computer. Oh yeah.
And
I
then
mean,
from there, it just, they cloned it or whatever they did and gained all these personal information. And then they're off to the races, opening new accounts and bank accounts. And
wow. Wow.
so,
Someone's posing as client service. Incidentally, just you probably haven't seen this, but there's a movie called Beekeeper. Have you ever seen
I
this?
think I have, yes.
It's an action flick, really, but the premise starts off with the same kind of thing where someone is getting a little bit of technology support, whatever,
Right.
and they basically wipe out their bank accounts through
Right.
this process. Same kind of concept, a little bit of trickery and, oh, Josh, I withdrew. I was supposed to take $50,000. It's now $50,000 or whatever it is.
Right.
Gosh, I need to get that back. Can you just front me that money or whatever? And ultimately, they wipe them out.
Right.
This fictional event, but I don't think it's entirely hard a stretch to think these kind of things happen.
And for the Facebook, you're thinking like there's fraudulent people like pretending to be other people, but you're on it and you get a private message from an entity that looks like them, and they're
Yeah.
trying to help you.
Right.
And
Right.
so people may have these experiences with work with someone else would log into their computer to fix something, which is really normal to give somebody authority if you're
I got
working with.
hacked on Facebook once before where
Yeah.
we had credit card information on the account to be able to do advertising,
Right.
and someone somehow hacked in and had false charges. They bought all kinds of stuff through that credit card link.
Yeah. So
Um,
it's really endless, and so you're not going to be able to prevent anything. If there's a data breach at a company, that's not your fault, and you'll be protected ultimately
Right.
by your credit card. But when something is going on, whether it's a call or a incoming message to you, the best advice we'll go over some of these quickly, but the best advice is just to pause, right?
Mm.
So you talked about those fake invoices. Sometimes they'll be from PayPal even, or a credit card,
Yes. Yes.
or it'll be a bank, Wells Fargo, Bank of America. And
Yep.
does fraudsters know that only 10% of the people that they're giving
But
these
enough
to?
people have that bank account that they'll think twice,
Right.
right?
Oh, it's the Wells Fargo. I have a Wells Fargo checking account. This
Right.
must be me, right?
Whereas I don't know if I don't have Wells Fargo, so I look at that and be like,
Like,
well,
yeah,
this
it's a
is
scam.
yeah.
It's
Right.
just the more personal they can make it to you, the more likely you are to fall for this, right?
Right.
Or the PayPal one is they'll send you an invoice, like you said, and says this item's being shipped. If you have any questions about your billing,
Yeah. Click
click
here or something.
click
Yeah.
here, and then you're heading down that rabbit hole.
Where they've got, they're dropping something on your computer or whatever it might be. Yeah.
So if you pause in those examples, or when you get a phone call, whatever, if you just pause and say, okay, I'm not going to trust anything. And I hate to live like that, but
Yeah.
you kind of
Yeah.
have to. All right, this is Wells Fargo. I have a Wells Fargo account. Let me log in separately to a link that you saved that is legitimate,
Mm-hmm.
and to see, and if you want to go further, to use a customer service number or go to the bank itself, but to know that is legitimate, and you choose the number that you call, not the number that they're giving you, right?
Yeah. I had something this a while ago. I probably told you this, Jeff. I was in California and went to the gas station, and somehow they spoofed my card.
Maybe a scanner,
Some kind of thing, right?
right?
So,
Yeah.
when I'm back here, I got a call saying, are you charging something in California? And I'm like, who is this? I'm thinking the bank is like,
You think this call is a
I'm
scam?
thinking it's a scam from the bank,
Mhm.
like, what is this, well, like,
They must
I'll call you back, so I call the bank,
smart. Yeah.
and they're like, yeah, are you in California? Because there's charges going on your card. And I'm like,
Yeah.
no, so I don't know how it happened, other than they think it was when I went to get gas. Somehow the pump had been compromised in a way that the strips, when you were doing your bank
Right.
card, got captured somehow.
Yeah.
So in any case, yeah, it's just so you have to, even when they're trying to protect you from the fraud, you're like, all right, are you real? But you gotta
It's
be
a
careful.
terrible posture to maintain, but you kind of have to.
Yeah,
Another scam that's recent, which I might have been susceptible to it because I've done this before. Um, Sometimes the best way to get an airline's attention, when you have long customer service or
yeah,
people have been resorting to Twitter or social
yeah.
media posts,
Make a comment on social media, and
I, I
oftentimes they're paying attention. Yeah,
I did this with a JetBlue incident. Could be any airline. This is an anti-JetBlue. I love JetBlue, but um,
I got my issues with JetBlue. I used to love JetBlue.
okay. Well, I was having an issue with JetBlue about something, and so they weren't responding, and it was very frustrating. So
Yeah,
when I was on Twitter, which I'm not anymore, but when I was on Twitter, I
yeah,
did it and I tagged them, so to speak, at JetBlue,
yeah.
and I instantly got a message back, private message from JetBlue.
So was it really JetBlue?
It was real. I didn't, and I got it, and they said, "We're sorry to hear about this. Can you give us the ticket number?" And I gave them the ticket number, which really isn't that harmful, I guess. But
Yeah,
I didn't process anything. Like I made a complaint. Here's JetBlue. They're helping me. I'm a happier person, right?
right.
And so it worked out. They helped me with the situation. But now there are
People faking that
they're fake.
reply.
Well, they're faking the name, so they create a handle that
Yeah,
says, I don't
it's
know,
got blue in it somehow.
Blue Assistance or whatever, right?
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
making that up. I don't know if that's a real thing.
Whatever, you get the point, yeah.
Right. And then they troll for these posts and they
Yeah,
find one and they contact you and they'll say, "Sorry to hear about your trouble. Can I validate that it's you? Would you please give us
yeah,
your name, date of
give
birth,
us some
social security
details.
number, bank account number?" As much as you'll give them,
Yep,
they'll
yep.
take, and obviously they're not going to fix your problem. So
That's very interesting.
you can be it the first examples where you're not doing business with these people, like a email that you get from PayPal or
Right.
Best Buy, Geek Squad, or all the common ones, right? Or a bank that don't do business with.
Yeah,
So
right.
that's something coming at you, and you're maybe heightened security. But this is one that you reach out to an entity, and something comes back to you, and it looks like it's who you contacted.
Right.
So I think you're a bit more vulnerable in situations
That's
like that.
really, insidious, as you're trying to solve this, waiting online with whatever your frustration is, and you're at wit's end, and
Yeah.
then, yeah, get you when you're weak, right? When you're these kind of things. What are
I,
some other ones that are common?
I think I can make a blanket category here is the government's trying to um,
Yeah,
find you because you missed
the
jury
IRS,
duty, or the
these
IRS,
yeah,
or a common one down here was actually a friend of ours got this call. They didn't fall for it, but they called me about it and asked because they knew I had been in law enforcement, where they get a call from somebody said that they were with a sheriff's office and they were um, following up on people who had missed jury duty. Now you might say, well, I didn't have jury duty, but they convince you that you must have missed it. Then you think, well, I don't really look at all my mail like I should,
Yeah,
you
I'm
know,
sure there's
right?
possibility,
So maybe I
where did it
did.
come? It went to the whatever. Yeah.
And so they give you two choices. And so in this example, they gave you two choices. They said, okay, well, you can report to the St. Lucie County Court on Monday at 9 o'clock and see the clerk and clear it up. Or if you'd like, you can pay the fine now, and it's $50. You just need to. We'll take a ETF out of your bank account. If you'd
Get
like to do that, we can do that right now. If you'd like to pay the $50. And how many people in that moment right?
Okay.
In that moment, think, well, it's
Easy
$50.
path of least resistance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they add on by they send an email. When you question them, they sent my friend this email that looked like a capias, a warrant, a civil warrant with your
Wow.
name on it because you missed jury duty. And of course, it's how easy it is to replicate a public looking document
Yeah.
now,
Make it
right?
look real. Yeah.
And they just say, okay, after we receive payment, we will, send you a
Or
release.
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. So and keep that release in case you get pulled over and this warrant's still in the system. They and it sounded legit. Luckily, this friend called and I said, they don't do this. They do
Yeah.
not do this. Believe me, they do not do this.
Yeah.
And if you want to find out, call the sheriff's office and ask them if they do that. So
Right.
the IRS doesn't call you. The sheriff's office, the police department, they don't call you. The tax collector, they don't call you.
They send you a communication by mail, usually, is the way that would
That's
go.
correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's correct. So if you
Or
get
if you have an online portal or something like that, like I'm thinking I wonder if Social Security, if you have a username on Social Security, do they reach out through that? Do you think?
I don't know. I
I
don't
think
know.
it's only by mail, but I wonder. Yeah.
I think it's by mail, and I think most of the criminals, at least at this point, don't subject themselves to mail because of the fraud
Yeah.
cases by using the postal service
It's
for
a
fraud.
federal offense. Yeah.
Yeah, they get federal authorities involved. There's actually a trail, and this so that's a broad category. If someone's claiming to be the government, um, please don't take their call.
Don't
And
believe them. Yeah.
the other thing that, since I'm focused on some law enforcement stuff here, is there's a lot
Yeah.
of entities that call you and they have a very official sounding name as some type of charity for the Police Benevolent Association or
I'm glad you brought that up. I get those calls from time to time, and they always have like a deep, resonant voice too.
they sound like a retired old police officer, right?
Yeah, and I'm always like, you're always afraid you're gonna get pulled over the next day if you
Yeah.
don't donate a little something, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
I can assure you that 99% of there might be one real one out there that some that I'm not aware of, but they're not real. They're not real. If you want to make a donation, if something's compelling to you, we just lost 3 deputies down here in a horrific car accident, and they're raising money for their families, but there's GoFundMe pages set up, by loved ones, and you can validate those and so forth. But if you just get an incoming phone call, you know, please don't fall for it because it's not legitimate. Odds are it's not legitimate, and you're opening up your heart and your pocketbook because you want to help somebody like this. But most of them, the super majority, I haven't seen a real one, but I just don't want to preclude it. And if there is a real one, you can validate that by calling the sheriff's office in this case and
yeah,
saying, I saw that your 3 deputies were killed. I'd like to help. How can I do that? Rather than getting some link.
right.
And the same thing goes for links on social media. They may or may not be legitimate charities.
Yeah,
There's
don't risk
plenty
it. Yeah,
plenty of scams there. I hope we're not scaring people and freezing.
I know, really. I'll share a recent one. My mom called me just I think it was last night,
Mhm,
just saying, "Hey, I got something that your student loans are overdue. What should I do?" Like
mhm.
worried that I was going to have a credit problem from something that was bogus, right?
Right,
So
right.
I was like, "Oh, you don't have to worry about that. My student loans were paid a long time ago,
Mhm.
and our kids are all set. So don't worry about it. It's a come on. There's so many creative ones. I don't know how they keep coming up with them,
Th-
but
They, they keep coming up with them because it's a numbers game, right?
right,
Yep. And
right,
as soon as one idea is saturated and the public is reasonably well
onto it.
informed,
Yeah,
I mean, you joked about the Nigerian prince,
right.
but that's a joke now because everybody kind of gets it. But
Yeah, we've
it
seen
wa-
it so long. Yeah,
when it started, people were falling for it or they had won some lottery, right?
yep, Yep.
And you just need to pay the $500 processing fee. And
yep. If it'll be between us.
That's right. And then the other common one that maybe we'll end on and shift gears a little bit, but is if someone's offering to send you a check for something, and then
they just need you to send them a little money to get it started or something.
No, I had this as a couple times when I was a practicing attorney, is that they'll send you a check for payment, or they'll say, I'm going to send you this check for payment. And then they'll call you back and say, you know what? I mailed it. It's for too much. Yeah, I only, owed you 25.
I sent you, X dollars. Could you mind just sending me back? Could you write a check for the difference that I
wrote you a check for 5,000? Just send me the 1,000 back. The 4,000 is for this business that you're going to run, or this product you're going to sell for me to go buy it, or you're going to be a secret shopper. So this is for your purchases, right? Yeah. And so they send you a bank check usually with some name that sounds like a good bank. Chris Boyd's Bank could be right on it, or Jeff Perry's Bank. And sometimes they're even Canadian banks, which delays the processing. It's not a Canadian bank. Sometimes it's
Canadian bank routing or whatever.
Right. And so what happens is you take your check, you bring it to your bank, you put it in the bank, and 3 or 4 days goes by.
Like, where's my money?
No, the money is still there, but because the check is fraudulent, and perhaps at a different country, but even if it's fraudulent, the process slows it down because it just doesn't automatically go through. And so in the meantime, you sent back a legitimate check for that $1,000. They cash it, which is a real check. And by the time and by the time this happens, because people aren't checking their bank accounts every day, also,
right,
you're out the money, and there's no one to get it back from because they were never real in the first place. It's not an insufficient funds check; it's a fraudulent check.
Right.
It's all made up.
Bogus check. So there's nothing to be obtained. I would also, just as a rule of thumb, if anyone is asking you to send them money and gift cards of some kind, that's probably not legit.
It isn't legit, or that even worse, they're asking you to get the gift card and read them the code.
Yeah, so don't do that.
Don't do that.
That's not legit.
Charities don't collect money this way. Law enforcement doesn't collect bail money this way. You don't, and we haven't even mentioned it, but cryptocurrency is another method that sometimes fraudster will ask you to buy a certain amount of. Pick your cryptocurrency. Bitcoin is the most common cryptocurrency, and then transfer it to us, and so forth.
Right. Exactly.
Just don't do it. On the topic of fraud, let's spend a few minutes, Chris, if we have time.
Yeah, I would just mention, and maybe this is where you're going with this, but all this talk about this kind of stuff raises the thought that from time to time, it's probably a good idea to do a credit check. And you can always take a look. There's lots of ways you can do this with the credit companies themselves, but you can go to freecreditreport.com as a way to take a look at your credit and look for any identity theft or that kind of thing.
Right. That's exactly where I wanted to transition, because sometimes they're just stealing your we've given a bunch of examples where they're stealing your information or your money. When they steal your information, they're not just getting your information for no reason. They intend to do something with it, and sometimes it's creating a whole new account.
Yeah.
Applying for a credit card or whatever the case may be in your name. So you'll see that when you check your credit report. You'll see that you have this Visa
credit card that you're like, I don't remember having a Bank of America credit card or whatever it is,
That's right.
Worse, I mean, when there's like people going out buying houses or something, right? Isn't there stuff like people trying to sell your house out from under you or something? Have you heard some of these crazy stories?
Title theft. Yeah. I'm not sure that the insurance is, there's an insurance product that you might hear advertised. They're not doing anything that you can't do. This is all public record. So they're not doing anything that you can't do on your own. You can check your county or online. I'd say in 99% of the counties in the country, you can check your. It's not really checking your deed because it really, you're checking the chain of title to
Yeah.
see if anybody's done anything on your title, and you can check that. You can put it on
Online.
your calendar to check
Time.
annually or quarterly, and just
Okay.
to make sure there's nothing after your purchase or no mortgages on it. Or when you
So
buy,
sorry, finish.
I was going to say, if you paid for the insurance, they're just doing it for you in an automated fashion, and they're not
Yeah.
preventing it. They're informing you that
Hey,
somebody
something's
did it,
happened. Yeah.
right? And you can check yourself for nothing.
So we've talked about this notion about freezing your credit. This ability so that if someone tries to take out a loan as if they're you, it would be unable to do that because you need a credit report to be able to do that. And this is something that can be a possibility, but it's definitely an inconvenience. So you have to be deliberate about being able to turn it on and turn it off when you do that approach to freezing your credit. We're in a world now, Jeff, where we now have to think about multi-factor inconvenience. I mean,
Hmm.
authentication. Uh, it's like not only do you have to have a password, now the password has to be, changed every so often. And it has to be not, 4 letters or numbers, but 8 letters or numbers. No, it's got
Right,
to be 12 8 or, all these like longer and longer characters. And now you got to have 2 things come in. One's going to hit you with a text and the other's, you put in your password or whatever. Right.
right,
It gets to a point where, I mean, it's pretty darn frustrating to have this, but it's for protection so that you don't have these kind of frustrations where someone's running off with your money in one form or another, or your credit, your identity, et cetera, et cetera.
right. If your financial situation, I mean, you're like stable, meaning you're not opening new cards, you're not opening new bank accounts, you're not out shopping for insurance quotes because sometimes they're
Yeah.
related to your credit score. So if you're just kind of, I have my stuff, I'm in this, I have my bank accounts, I have these credit lines that I have this insurance, I'm all happy with it. I'm an advocate to freeze your credit reports. It's a peace of mind thing.
Hmm.
But you're right. You do have to be aware if you go to buy a new car and you think you might want to explore a loan on it, or if you're, shopping around for new auto insurance, you're going to have to unfreeze it before you do that, or you won't be able to get the vendor, the car dealer, or the insurance company won't be able to get a credit score or a credit report when they ask for one. So I do it. My credit is frozen because I don't.
I think it's prudent.
Yeah,
It's challenging, but and then so you think those the uh, services where you get protection, air quotes, is maybe more just a reporting than it is
I do. Yeah,
preventative.
I
Yeah.
do. And I'm not, you know, if people feel comfortable with it and they think it's worth the money to not have to do it themselves,
Yeah.
um,
Maybe it's
that's
maybe
that's
that's value. Yeah.
that's fine. People have pay for coffee to have it made for them, and some people
Yeah.
make it at home. So it's not a value judgment. I'm just saying, don't think you're getting like this super protection. It can still happen, um, but you'd be alerted to it in that scenario.
As we wind down, there might be other things you wanted to cover, Jeff, but one thing I wanted to remind everyone, if you want to hear more about scams and schemes, in June, on the June 10th episode of Something More with Chris Boyd, we spoke with Bob Powell about
Hmm.
this very topic, and there'll probably be some more tidbits you might benefit from that as well.
Yeah.
Was there anything else you wanted to cover, Jeff?
No, we could go on indefinitely, but I guess I'll end my comment on where I started it is, even if you are reasonably confident that whatever you're looking at is real, just pause, and think about, how did I receive this information? Um, and there's nothing wrong with telling someone, I hear you, I'm going to deal with this. Give me your number, and hang up, or let if it's in
I think
person, which
that's
is
good counsel, Jeff.
right.
Just step back. Don't be don't get caught up in this intended haste.
That's right.
Because it might catch you off guard. Whereas if you can slow it down, you have a moment to catch your breath. Maybe
Yep.
you'll have the opportunity to say, "Let me check on this. Let me make sure this is the legit."
And if you don't have to like call the sheriff's office if that makes you nervous.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
can call a friend and say, this just happened. Does this make sense to you? You can call, if you have a financial advisor, I'd love you to call us, our clients.
yeah.
Just
Some of
th-
these
th-
things you can even just Google,
that's right.
and there'll be all kinds of insights about some of these scams that are repeated
Yeah.
that you'll be able to identify just with a quick search
Yeah.
sometimes.
You can put anything that's happening and put the word scam after it, and it will highlight, the
When it
likely
is.
related
Yeah.
subjects. So just pause, talk to somebody, even if it's little Johnny, potentially in handcuffs behind behind the prison cells. He's 5 more minutes isn't going to change this.
Yeah.
Just pause, talk to somebody, and you could be saving yourself a lot of headache and a lot of money, because it can
Yeah.
happen to you. It can happen to all of us. None of us are beyond
It's a
falling for something.
huge fraudulent industry, and there's
Yes.
a lot of money that's transacted by virtue of people, unwittingly falling prey to these kind of tactics. So, as much as we all think it doesn't happen to me, it
Right.
can happen to anybody.
It can. It can.
All right. Well, good thoughts. I mean, tough topic here, Jeff. I mean, it's a little scary stuff, right? But knowledge is power. Want to make sure that you're in a better position if you see these things, if they come up across your email or your phone call or whatever, you're in a better position to be prepared.
Yep.
So, with that, everybody, thanks for being with us. Until next time, keep striving for something more.
Thank you for listening to Something More with Chris Boyd. Call us for help, whether it's for financial planning or portfolio management, insurance concerns, or those quality of life issues that make the money matters matter. Whatever's on your mind, visit us at somethingmorewithchrisboyd.com or call us toll free at 866-771-8901. Or send us your questions to amr-info@wealthenhancement.com. You're listening to Something More with Chris Boyd Financial Talk Show. Wealth Enhancement Advisory Services and J. Christopher Boyd provide investment advice on an individual basis to clients only. Proper advice depends on a complete analysis of all facts and circumstances. The information given on this program is general financial comments and cannot be relied upon as pertaining to your specific situation. Wealth Enhancement Group cannot guarantee that using the information from this show will generate profits or ensure freedom from loss. Listeners should consult their own financial advisors or conduct their own due diligence before making any financial decisions.